A life for a life is just punishment for a person who cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. Political morality is to punish a person by a death sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. That a murderer is condemned to a death sentence by the state is good for the culprit, because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Such a death sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him. And it is said in the Smriti Shastras that men who are punished by the king on the principle of a life for a life are purified of all their sins. So much so that they may be eligible for being promoted to the planets of heaven. According to Manu, the great author of civic codes and religious principles, even the killer of an animal is to be considered a murderer, because animal food is never meant for the civilized man, whose prime duty is to prepare himself for going back to Godhead. He says that in the act of killing an animal, there is a regular conspiracy by the party of sinners, and all of them are liable to be punished as murderers, exactly like a party of conspirators who kill a human being combinedly. He who gives permission, he who kills the animal, he who sells the slaughtered animal, he who cooks the animal, he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, and at last he who eats such cooked animal food are all murderers, and all of them are liable to be punished by the laws of nature. No one can create a living being despite all advancement of material science, and therefore no one has the right to kill a living being by one's independent whims. For the animal eaters, the scriptures have sanctioned restricted animal sacrifices only, and such sanctions are there just to restrict the opening of slaughterhouses and not to encourage animal killing. The procedure under which animal sacrifice is allowed in the scriptures is good for both the animal sacrificed and the animal eaters. It is good for the animal in the sense that the sacrificed animal is at once promoted to the human form of life after being sacrificed at the altar, and the animal eater is saved from grosser types of sins, eating meats supplied by organized slaughterhouses, which are ghastly places for breeding all kinds of material afflictions to society, country, and the people in general. The material world is itself a place always full of anxieties, and by encouraging animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So in this verse, Prabhupada is explaining what is the reason for all the calamities in the world that is happening around us. Many of us are left puzzled at most of the times, not knowing the basic cause for all the sufferings that is happening in the material world. So there is a clue for understanding the reason in this verse. The verse itself explains that a cruel and a wretched person, agrinaha kalaha, so that person who lives at the existence of others, that is parapranaihi. So and he maintains his existence, that is swapranan. So such a agranaha kalaha who maintains himself, that is swaprana, at the cost of others' lives, parapranaihi, then what is the right kind of treatment for him? Tadvadastasya hi shreyo. Tadvadas, to kill him, is shreyaha, is good for him, is auspicious for him. Because if you don't do it, if you don't kill him for that such a heinous act performed by him, yat doshad, otherwise for that kind of sin committed by him, what will happen? Yati adappuman, he will go down the hellish planets. So basically this is the verse in which Krishna is telling Arjuna, in the context that Arjuna had captured Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama, we have been reading in the past few weeks that Ashwatthama had beheaded the 5 sons of Pandavas while they were asleep, and for such a heinous act performed by Ashwatthama, Arjuna chased him and captured him, and now Arjuna has brought Ashwatthama in front of Krishna and all the other Pandavas. So while they were discussing about what is the right kind of treatment or punishment to be meted out to this sinner, at that time Krishna is instructing Arjuna in this verse, where he is telling that such a cruel and wretched person. Why is Ashwatthama a cruel and wretched person? Because he has beheaded, killed the sleeping sons, the young children of Pandavas. So therefore it's a very ghastly sin, and as Prabhupada explains in the purport, a life for a life. A life for a life means if you have taken away somebody's life, then according to Manu Samhita and according to the scriptural injunctions, then his life has to be killed. And by giving such kind of a capital punishment, there is no sin. Because if you don't give that punishment to that sinner, to that killer, to that murderer, then he will be suffering the consequences for that sin in the hellish planets. So in a way, killing such a person who has performed a heinous activity, such a criminal activity, is good for that sinner. So that is what Krishna is explaining in this verse. In fact, in the last verse we have seen how there are three different kinds of illusion, madness. In the last verse, Krishna tells that there are three kinds of madness. Does anyone remember what it is? Matta, Pramatta and Unmatta. So Prabhupada explains in one of the Bhagavatam purports what is Matta. Matta is defined as something being carelessness, inattention. All of us in our daily chores of activities, we perform some mistakes. Because of inattention, we may slip out some things, we may wrongly interpret some things. So those mistakes are common. To err is human. So that is common and it is admissible. So that those kind of small mistakes which is performed not with an intent to perform are called as matta. It is because of some kind of inattention. And the next level of mistake is called pramatta. Pramatta is that condition of a person where he is constitutionally not mad, but he is overpowered by some desire, and he is forced to do some kind of a bad activity. So, but constitutionally is a good person. So we see so many times that in news we hear of some great celebrities or some people who are supposed to lead the whole state or a nation. They perform some kind of a heinous act. So they are constitutionally very good. By nature they are good. But by the force of the laws of nature, they perform something. So that these kind of living entities are known as pramatta. And the highest level of madness is called unmatta. Unmatta is that state of life where people have become maddened about achieving something. At any cost, I need that. Doesn't matter how many lives are sacrificed in that process. I want that and I will achieve that. So that kind of a mad desire for sense gratification to satisfy their own senses that condition is called unmatta. And the right kind of punishment for those people who are overpowered by this kind of madness, unmatta, is to kill them, as this verse is telling. So the context is Ashwatthama had been in that state of unmatta. He wanted to somehow or the other have an upper hand over the Pandavas. And that is not possible by rightfully fighting in the war field. So he decided to embrace a backdoor entry. So he resorted to unlawful measures to take a leading step than the Pandavas, and he beheaded the sleeping sons of Pandavas. And in fact, there are a lot of religious principles enjoined in the Shastras that when you are engaged in the art of fighting for a Kshatriya, you are not supposed to strike below the waist. You are only, you can only fight above the waist. You cannot strike the enemy below the waist. So like that, there are lots of rules and regulations. And you would have heard in the Mahabharata, that would have been broadcasted in the televisions and all that, when Pandavas and Kauravas were so fiercely fighting in the war field, but then when the conch is blown in the evening, in the dusk, marking the end of that day's battle. Again they become friends, and they were even sharing the dinner on the same table. So those days the fight was based on some religious principles, but Ashwatthama was an exception to it. He was characterized by this kind of madness called Unmatta, where he had broken the religious principles and had killed the sleeping sons of Pandavas, and therefore Krishna is advising Arjuna that he is rightfully supposed to be killed according to the Shastras. And but somehow this understanding is not there in the present day world. Like recently I was hearing in the news that some assassins of very great political personality were being released by the government. They were, contemplating on not hanging them, because they feel, the current day generation feels, that killing a person is denying his fundamental right to live. So, but as per the Shastras, if you don't give that kind of punishment to this great sinner who has taken away another's life, and that is what Prabhupada explains in the purport, if you do not have the right to create life, you also do not have the right to destroy life. That's the formula. So, and therefore even perpetrators of animal sacrifice who perform this animal killing, they are also on the platform of murderers. Just like you cannot create a living being, you cannot create an animal, you also cannot kill an animal. Animals are not meant to be eaten by sane beings like that of human beings. So, but this generation does not lack this kind of intelligence, and they feel compassion for the dress of a human being. Just like Prabhupada gives the example in Bhagavad Gita, when a person is drowning in the ocean, and when you are supposed to go and save him, you instead go and dive into the waters and bring his shirt back. Does it make any sense? No. So similarly, the compassion, all the ethical moral values that we are talking about and discussing in today's life are just meant to solace and comfort the bodily necessities of human beings. Nothing is discussed about the real well-being of the soul. So therefore we all are deluded in our attempts to satisfy ourselves. And one of the famous example in Bhagavatam, which is a very practical example of this verse, is the pastime of Lord Shiva and Daksha. When Daksha had invited Lord Shiva to his sacrifice, and when Lord Shiva had arrived there in respect to Daksha's invite, Daksha started abusing Lord Shiva in bad words. Lord Shiva is the greatest personality. The Bhagavatam says he is one of the greatest Vaishnava. And when Daksha started abusing and offending Lord Shiva with so harsh words, then Lord Shiva killed him. So Prabhupada explains in that purport that it was good for Daksha to have died in the fight, because if he had lived, he would have committed such offences at the lotus feet of great personalities like Lord Shiva again and again. According to Manu's law, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him, because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders, and therefore his future will be very dark. Therefore the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. So this is a practical example that we see from Bhagavatam, how Lord Shiva implemented this knowledge of Bhagavatam in his own life. So, and it is therefore not wrong to kill a person who has committed a very heinous and a criminal act. But if you just think backwards and understand why such bad things happen, why people get overpowered by this unmatta, we are discussing about this state of life called unmatta, why they are so maddened about achieving some things, and without realizing the fallacy of that. So there is once a story which Srimad Bhagavatam describes, that once upon a time there was a man who was going in search of food in the forest. In his search of food, he was somehow very much exhausted, and he went very deep into the forest and lost his route to the village. At that point of time, he was attacked by a ferocious tiger, and he started running for his life as fast as he could. And in the forest, there are a lot of blind wells. Blind wells are those wells which are covered by creepers and leaves and branches of trees, and you can't identify that it is a well. So when he was running for his life and being chased by a ferocious tiger, he fell into that deep well. And as he was falling into the well, since that well was not being used for a long time, there were a lot of creepers and trees that had grown from the walls of the well, in the inner periphery of the well. So as he was falling, somehow, by the grace of the Lord, he could catch hold onto one of the branches of the tree. And he was having a big sigh of relief that he did not fall down and he did not get bruised. So at that point, he looks up and he sees the sight of a tiger waiting for him, and a hungry tiger. Just imagine that scenario. And the person feels greatly relieved. Oh my God, I just escaped. My life is back. So as he was enjoying that kind of a pleasure, like Prabhupada many times he says that what is happiness in the material world? The cessation of misery is considered a happiness. He gives an example, when a person is forcibly dipped into the waters, you are gasping for breath, that misery is going to end your life. At that time you pull him out. He feels a sigh of relief and happiness. He feels that life has come back to him. Again he will be dipped into the water. So material world, the happiness is nothing but a cessation of the temporary cessation, transient cessation of suffering. So this person, when he similarly was saved, so-called saved for a temporary time from the ferocious tiger, he felt that he has gotten back his life. But then he just glances down to know what is there in the well, and it was a dry well. And for his shock, that dry well was completely filled by snakes. The moment the snakes saw him tumbling down with a great sound, they raised their hoods and started hissing, as if the moment he falls down, he would be finished. So all snakes are just eagerly waiting for him. So now he again started, feeling that panicky nature. But then he felt, okay, no, I am holding on firmly to a tree, to a branch of a tree, so I need not worry. So he comforted himself, he solaced himself. Many times when we do not know the exit of suffering, we get used to that suffering. Okay, it's a part of life, what to do? Nobody will question, how can I come out? Okay, when you go and tell your friends, we are suffering with janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, death, old age and disease. So what? It's a part of life. We have to deal with it. We have to live with it. So this person also comforted himself with that kind of an attitude. And then he glances towards the end of that branch which he is holding onto, which is erupting out of the inner periphery of the well. He sees two rats, one black and one white, nibbling at the bark of that root of that tree. They are slowly eating away the tree which is holding this person very firm. So at any point of time, if the rats achieve their mission, this person will be down at the snakes. So now he has an option. He has an option whether to climb up and be eaten away by the ferocious tiger, or wait for the rats to finish off eating the end of the tree and fall down and be killed by the snakes. At this point of time, because he is holding on to a branch of a tree, because of his weight, the tree is shaking a bit, and there was a honeycomb on that tree. So one drop of honey fell on his tongue. And he felt great ecstasy. Just imagine. On the top you have a ferocious tiger, down you have snakes, here rats are eating away the branch to which you are holding on to, and now there is a honey drop coming from the honeycomb, and you are greatly happy about that, enjoying that nectar, enjoying that honey that is coming onto you. So Bhagavatam says, this is the scenario of all of us in the material world. The Bhagavatam in which this story is being explained, it also strikes the relation between all these characters. The man who was running for his life and got stuck in this precarious condition is compared to a spirit soul which is embedded in this material body. And the tiger which was chasing him, ferocious tiger, is nothing but the fate. The fate just, allows the living entities to experience their karma. Nothing can be done about it. And the snakes, the fearful death waiting with poisonous fangs. So snakes are nothing but death. At any time it might approach us. And honey, what is honey? Sense gratification. And the rat is the waxing and waning of the sun. That is the time, day and night. So those day and night, the rats are moving. So every day, today morning, Sunday morning, today 13th March 2016. So then again 13th March 2016 evening. Then tomorrow it ends. So you will not get 13th March 2016 again. That is why Chanakya Pandita says, not a single moment of your life can be exchanged against millions of dollars. Every moment is precious. And the creeper to which he was holding on to, his life, his prana, life air. And the blind well onto which he fell down is the samsara, the enjoyment, false enjoyment on this material world. And at this time, suppose you come across a friend who with his whatever instruments or equipments, he drives away the tiger and drops a rope into the blind well and pulls you out. What kind of bliss is that? And that rope is compared to bhakti, and the person who is dropping that rope is called Guru. So this is very much evident in all of our lives. We have got access to a personality like Srila Prabhupada, who has taken out his compassion at the age of 70 years when all of us retire to safety. He stepped out of this comfort zone and went to a land of lechas. In our day-to-day preaching activities, we realize that when foreigners come to this temple, it is next to impossible to sell a Bhagavad Gita to them. Take it from me. And if you are asking donation, forget it. Such people were asked to, they voluntarily gave up their lives for the service of Srila Prabhupada. This magic nobody else can do. You can do any other kind of magics. So, but Srila Prabhupada convinced the hard-hearted foreigners. That's an amazing feat which cannot be performed by a human being of this planet. See, you can yourself think about it. I can influence you on certain things. In our business, we influence upon our vendors. In our day-to-day other activities, we exert our influence on something else. But then, to ask a person who doesn't know, because I think last time also I did mention this, I guess, that when we come across these foreigners visiting our temples, I'm really stunned as to what are they trained in their lives. When we give them Mangalarti, they call it as fire. What is this fire? What am I supposed to do with this? And when you give Charanamrit, they say, what am I supposed to lick like this? Oh, that's very unhygienic way of doing it. That is what their culture is all about. Such people were made to embrace the path of bhakti. So that's something a guru who is empowered by the Lord himself can do it. He has pulled all of us out of this samsara kupa, where otherwise we had only two options, a tiger or the snake. And we were quite happy about that one drop of honey which was falling down. But then Prabhupada is now giving us an access to the ocean of happiness. And why such people in this material world? We always ask this question, why are they so much enamored by this desire, maddened after sin? Why this unmatta happens? Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto, Lord Shiva prays to Krishna as follows. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they are always busy with a desire to do this or to do that. And this is due to the uncontrollable greed. This is Lord Shiva's prayer to Lord Krishna. He is explaining why this unmatta, how it happens. So Lord Shiva declares that it is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment always exists in the living entity, but your Lordship is always alert. And in due course of time, you strike him just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallow him. So if a person is not coming out of his uncontrollable greed, just like a snake captures a mouse, we will be captured by the destiny, by our fate. And greed is the reason, desire for enjoyment is the reason for becoming unmatta. And we yet again see another instance in the Bhagavatam 8th canto, how this unmatta happens and what is the nature. And this is in the context of the churning of the milk ocean. And when Dhanvantari appeared out of the churning with a pot of nectar, the demons snatched the pot of nectar. And they were fighting amongst themselves. Loud cries were heard saying, Aham Purvam, Aham Purvam. I am first, I am first. That is mine, that is mine. Natvam, Natvam. Not yours, not yours. They started a big fight. That I want to be first, I want to be first. So you see the same thing happening today also. I want to be the first. My visiting card should be on the top. The desire, that greed, man is not happy with his need. That is what Lord Shiva is telling. And in this context of milk ocean churning, the Bhagavatam says that, Prabhupada says in this context, the purport says that this is the symptom of demons. Where they want to be first and they are never satisfied by the need, they want to be always greedy, that is a symptom of demons. The first concern of a non-devotee is how to enjoy this personal sense gratification. And the difference between such a non-devotee and devotees, the devotee's first criteria is how to satisfy the senses of the Lord. See, satisfying the senses is the same. But demons, they want to satisfy their own senses. And the devotees want to satisfy the Lord's senses. So, and what is the result of that? Milk churning, the pot of nectar being stolen by the demons, asuras and all that. Because the devotees were engaged in the service of the Lord, finally the pot of nectar came to them. Lord took the form of Mohini and vanquished the demons. The Lord cheated the demons, so-called cheated the demons, and then gave it to the devotees. So similarly, Prabhupada says that those who are engaged in the service of the Lord, we are not bereaved of any kind of enjoyment. Sometimes people outside, they can't understand this. You don't eat onion garlic, you don't drink coffee tea, you don't go to movies, you don't go to malls, you don't eat outside food. Are you living? They think that we are like sadhus who are in the olden age, but Prabhupada revolutionized the concept of a sadhu, where they eat some one food, but they don't know in ISKCON prasadams we do chapan bhog, offering to the Lord. So Prabhupada has institutionalized, revolutionized the movement of ISKCON, through the movement of ISKCON, because he knew what exactly we want, the living entities of Kali Yuga. We can't be happy in the setting of a matha, where you are asked to read the scriptures and chant the holy names for the whole day. So therefore he has given us wonderful varieties of services just to engage us. But people outside, they can't understand this. They feel that if you are not doing this, if you are not going to a hotel, if you are not going to a mall, then your life is wasted. And more so if they see youngsters doing this, at this age did you give up? And the first question, most frequently asked question, FAQ, is what made you join at this moment, at this age? This is the most fundamental question. Do you all agree with me? Because they don't understand, they think that if you are not enjoying materially, if you are not satisfying your senses, then that means you are not experiencing life. But by the beautiful arrangement of the Lord, when we engage in the service of the Lord, we automatically get everything and much more, much million times more than what karmis get by trying to satisfy their senses. That is the beautiful thing that Bhagavatam gives. And in fact, I also found while searching recently on net something, I found these people who are greedy. We are discussing about this statement of Shiva, who says that being greedy is the source of all this nature of unmatta and then sufferings, all that consequences. I recently heard that doctors have found that people who very often use the words me, mine, myself, I repeat, me, mine, myself and I. The people who use these four words more frequently, they are more prone to heart attacks. This is a medical survey. So everybody has to agree. Those who, even somebody who cannot rely on the authority of Vedas or scriptures, they believe in medical science and the modern science. So the modern medical science says this, they have found this out, that who are always self-centered, they are more prone to heart attacks, because they can't adjust to even a slight discomfort in their pursuit of sense gratification. There was once a nice story of 3 robbers who fit into this category of self-centered, and let's see what their plight was at the end of their journey. Long ago there lived a group of 3 robbers who were who had this expertise in the art of robbery. One of them could break open the locks, the other was expert at doing forgery, and the other person was good at his knife. So they all once got together and robbed a house. So they got huge amounts of booty. They got huge jewelry and cash and things like that, precious stones, diamonds and all that. And because they were known very well for their robbery, so they didn't want to immediately go to the market and sell them off and invite the risk of being caught. So what they did is, they all amassed the wealth that they had collectively looted, and they escaped to a nearby woods, forest. And they all decided to bury that entire booty under a plant, and they just planted a jasmine bud on it. So they felt that after some days, when the whole situation subsides and the temper comes down, then they can share amongst themselves, they can go to the market and sell that and enjoy the returns. So, but after having done that and ensured that the jewelry and all that bounty is safe, they started feeling the pain of hunger. They started feeling that they should eat some food now. So, but they were also very much concerned about what would happen to this money, and if it is just left like that and things like that. So they decided that 2 of them will stay back near the bounty where they had stored, and one of them will go into the city and bring some food for the rest of the two as well. So as per this agreement, one of this person goes to the city and he packs the food. And first of all, he was very hungry, so he eats the food by himself and then gets 2 more packets of food for the other 2 waiting for him. So meanwhile, at this end, the other 2 robbers who were waiting for this third robber to return with some food, they started discussing amongst themselves, why should we share this amongst 3 of us? Anyway, that person who has gone to bring food, he has not got much contribution in this whole theft, burglary. So let us kill him. The moment he comes with the food, let us snap him to death. And then we shall be able to enjoy a bigger share. So this was the plan conspired by these 2 thieves. And as and when the third robber returned with food, as per their plan, they bet him black and blue and they killed him. Once he had been killed, now these 2 robbers felt, great ecstasy because their share of wealth had gone up, and they were also very hungry. So when they saw the food that was brought by the third robber, now that he is killed, and they'll eat that food to their full tummy, they'll eat and they'll be very happy. But then very shortly will they realize that the food was poison. The third robber also had made a plan that it was my contribution to this burglary and those 2 had not done anything, so why should they both enjoy at my cost? Let me kill both of them and me alone enjoy this food. So he had mixed poison to those 2 food packets. So finally all the 3 of them died. So this very clearly shows that what is the fate of the souls who are always greedy for sense enjoyment. We want to achieve something to satisfy our senses, but we will be meeting only failure at the end. If we don't realize this, we will be trying this life after life. Not only on this planet, in different planets as well. That is why Shastra says, Abrahma bhuvana loko punaravartino Arjuna. We have tried this not only on this planet, not only in the form of human being, but in all other forms of life as well. Not only on this planet and different planets as well. As a demigod, as a reptile, as an aquatic, as a amphibian, every form of living being we have tried. Finally, by the Lord's mercy, we have got this human form of life, which alone can be used to either elevate yourselves or degrade yourselves. So we'll have to really give it a serious thought to this greed and the desire for sense gratification, which is going to be killing us very shortly, like the fate of these robbers who had desired to enjoy themselves at the cost of others' lives. See, if we realize this, most of our administration in the country will come down. Just like if you see, day in and day out, I hear that there are some crores of cases undisposed in the courts. Why? That is again because of greed. One person is telling this is my property and the other person is telling that is his property. One of them is true and the other is false. Very clear. But then to establish that, it's taking a lot of time. Many years, valuable lifetime is going away. The days and nights are passing, white rat and black rat are eating the root. Anytime we may be down to the snakes of death. Without realizing this, sometimes in the material world, that is why as devotees we should always be conscious in the inset of our heart, that when people celebrate birthdays, they say my 10th birthday, 30th birthday, 60th birthday. Sir, we have died 60 years already. Any time, we don't have a guarantee, we don't have an advance notice. And we also hear this common saying, till now I think if I come hear the news of about 10 deaths, amongst those 10 deaths, at least 8 people connected to those deaths will tell me this common statement. What is that common statement? Yesterday night I was talking to him. He was fine. This morning, half an hour before I met him. Sir, that is like that. You don't have an advance notice of even a single moment. That doesn't mean that, sometimes people think, no, you people are pessimists. No, this is not called pessimism, this is optimism. A student who is preparing for an examination at the end of the year is not a pessimist. Rather, he is called intelligent, because he knows that there is going to be an examination at the end of the year and is getting prepared himself to score well and come out with flying colors at the end of the year. Similarly, those living entities who are very much conscious and aware that they are going to meet end at the end of this life, they are going to meet death at the end of this life, are called devotees, are called sentient beings, are the sanest amongst the entire human race. And we can't call them pessimists. Rather, on the other side, who do not realize that there will be death. And that is why when Yaksha had questioned Yudhishthira, what is the most surprising thing in this world? Dharmaraja Yudhishthira replies that the most wonderful, surprising thing in this world is that although we are seeing everybody dying around us, our grandparents, great-grandparents are no more. They might be the kings of their times. They might be, given utmost reverence and venerance at, by all their community. They could be the heads of political states. But today they are not there. So there will be a time when we will not be there. So Dharmaraja says, although we are seeing every moment so many deaths around us, but we feel that we are going to live forever. Everybody, all of us feel that we are going to live forever. We can't envision that there is going to be an end for us. And that is why Lord Shiva says, this is because of greed. We feel that so much of, planning we do, so much of sense gratification, we feel that we are going to live forever. But to such a sect of people, Srila Prabhupada so mercifully institutionalized this whole spiritual knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Just imagine that this is not the only Krishna temple in the world. We all have been going to innumerable temples all through our lives, even before you came across Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON. But then we never felt, like as an student, when my parents used to call me for some temples on the festive days like Yugadi or Shankranti, I rather was preferring to stay back at home and watch some recent movies, the new movies they'll be telecasting on the festival days. So that was a kind of background that we all came from, maybe except a few. So but for our kind of people, Srila Prabhupada exactly knew what we want. And if there would not have been an institution like this, with IT, with that, with this, with graphics, with animation, if the temple is just supposed to be a place for, earning livelihood for the pujaris, none of us would have come here. Because we do not have any craze or any, the affinity for going to a temple and standing in front of the deity. At the most you can stand for maybe 60 seconds. In that 60 seconds also this way and that way would have seen 10 times. Would have seen back and front. So and we will see maximum, we will see the form of the Lord. Till now I see many times that people say that the moment people have darshan and come, you ask him which dress the Lord was wearing, you can't tell. Which color. Because it is just not there in our blood to appreciate the transcendental form of the Lord. So for all of us like us, Prabhupada has created an institution where we can be engaged in multitude of services. Otherwise some of us would have been some entrepreneurs, some of us would have been in marketing, so each and every tendency of us has been addressed by the grace of Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to tell you one nice pastime of Srila Prabhupada, where he was giving a lecture in one temple room. This was in London, if I am right. And he was lecturing on the 2nd chapter, 13th verse of Bhagavad Gita. At that time he was telling that he was emphasizing the importance of severing the material attachments. and taking up Krishna consciousness with utmost earnestness. So the context in which we are discussing to give up the sense gratification. So Prabhupada was talking about the same subject, and at that time one of the devotees asked a question that, it was something, the question was not clear. This is a memory recollected by one of the devotees of Srila Prabhupada. So he is saying that the question asked by the first devotee was not clear. He was just asking of some citation of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada just answered him by saying, what is the difficulty? It's very clear. So then came the turn of this devotee who is recollecting of this entire pastime. So this devotee said, I raised my hand, and Srila Prabhupada acknowledged, yes, you can ask your question. And then he started asking this question, and the moment he started by saying, how can we give up material? By the time even he did not finish the question, it felt as if Srila Prabhupada was waiting for that question. How can we? So even before this devotee finished his question, Srila Prabhupada started speaking. And he said that, he said a few words, and it was so inspiring to this devotee. And then Prabhupada said, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. And then he explained how we should not be having any other desires other than serving the Lord. And at that time, he made one statement which hit like a thunderbolt to this devotee. And that statement was Prabhupada, he was saying, the Sanskrit verse Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, and then he concluded by giving so many examples that how one devotee can be engaged in the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada started saying that one can be engaged in the service of the Lord by cooking, by distributing books, by cleaning the altar, by cleaning the temple room, by distributing holy name, by distributing prasadam, and one can even drive a car for Krishna. And why this point struck this devotee? Why this sentence struck this devotee? Because this devotee was a driver. He was recollecting in his memory that Prabhupada knew exactly. See, Prabhupada didn't know this devotee. He had just come from India, and then this was the first day of his landing at London, and he was giving this lecture, and he was not at all introduced by anyone, and he is not that big personality to be told about to Srila Prabhupada by the devotees there. He was just a mere driver. And Prabhupada in his lecture, while giving many examples, he said you can even drive a car for Krishna. It felt so much inspired for this devotee that he felt out of the world. He told, Prabhupada is placing me on an equal platform to those who are worshipping Krishna, to those who are cooking for Krishna. I always felt that I am doing a lowly service. So Prabhupada defied his, his inner doubt that he had. He dispelled that dilemma in the heart of the devotee and clarified that it is possible to serve the Lord and get His mercy by any kind of the service that we are inclined to and that we are good at. So similarly, if you see in today's context, in a great organization like this, if Prabhupada would not have created International Society for Krishna Consciousness, all of us do not have the opportunity to engage. Not everybody can be a full-time missionary. Not everybody can do one kind of service. But today, in the form of this organization, we have got innumerable opportunities to reach the Lord. And Prabhupada has reached out that rope of bhakti in all of these forms. Whether you cook, whether you drive, whether you clean, whether you worship, whether you distribute books, whether you distribute holy name, whether you distribute prasad, it is considered transcendental. It is considered an activity that is trying to be pleasing to Lord Krishna. You are trying to please Lord Krishna's senses, and happiness is 100% guaranteed. So we should be grateful for this opportunity given by a great personality, empowered by Lord Krishna himself, like Srila Prabhupada. We should use this opportunity to the fullest extent possible. Realize in our lives that there is an end to all our lives, irrespective of who we are. We may be king, we may be having innumerable assets, we may be intelligent, whatever it is, we have very short time. Assuming that even 80 years, okay, take it as 100 years. So you subtract whatever your current age is from 100 years, although 100 is a farce. You have got very few moments. In that we will have to cater to our sleep, minimum maintenance of the body, eating. All this has to be done. We can't, come out of that. We can't escape the laws of nature. So very little time do we have got to realize the purpose of our lives. So we'll have to take this seriously, get associated with Srila Prabhupada's books, and realize that in this very life that we are meant to go back to Godhead and be happy eternally. So we shall end the class here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,